Okay, this is our kind of traditional wrap-up at the end of the conference. It's just me and Martin now. The rooms are empty. People have headed off to the bar and stuff like that, pretty much. I just reflected on Tru London. We've had 170 people through, which is significant. I think we've outgrown the venue a little bit. I've learned, we had a lot of new people, but we also had some very high-profile businesses like the BBC, Accenture, Electronic Arts, Barclays, a whole range of businesses which bring a new dimension. And I think Matt Alder said to me last night, said the thing for me was you had Paul Max in, who's the head of global talent attraction for Unilever, massive corporation, and then you've got the one-person agency, and they're all in the same room, and they're all talking about the same stuff. And that really, we have to say that if we look at our whole opinion about this, really, if we look at our whole feeling about how this is being operated, really how it's working, I think that's the point. I think the conversation that we can have when you've got such a wide range of participants. I think the other thing with the participants is really that we didn't have any dominant force. So in the past we've perhaps had lots of social media people, or we've had the majority of people have been agency recruiters, or they've been corporate recruiters. There was no kind of one dominant population of people, which really led to some very free-flowing conversation. I think the other biggest observation I would make in comparison to Tru Londons that we've had in the past, and we've had some fantastic events in the past, and this is perhaps how things are progressing, both Tru and the markets, is that we're not talking about channels anymore. There's not a lot of talk about Facebook, there's not a lot of talk about Twitter. It's much more around, as you'd imagine, things like data, job or career sites. Fantastic exercise with building a model career site. It's less around kind of the moralistic or hypothetical areas of candidate experience, but actually practical candidate experience, things that we can do in terms of numbers of clicks, or what needs to be done with process to make it easier. So, and most of the people here brought some war stories. They had some stories to tell. They weren't just here to learn and try and soak up the knowledge of a few gurus or supposed experts. Everybody had war stories to tell, from some great companies, Salesforce, from independent agencies, from large agencies. People have war stories to come along and say, look, this is what we're doing, or this is the problem I'm having, or this is what I'm finding. And I think that's fantastic. I'm over the moon about that we've progressed to that level. I think it's great for Tru. Our next event is Tru Stockholm. We've tied down some more April and May events. We're going to be doing a very special event in San Francisco that I'll be sharing sometime next week in a very cool location. So there's lots of great things happening. The last thing I'd like to say, hats off really to the participants for taking part. Something that somebody said to me who's never been at a Tru event before said, really, I was very concerned coming to this because my level of knowledge of social media and social recruiting, I'm really enthusiastic for it, but I haven't done any. I don't feel, I'm only just starting out on Twitter and Facebook and things like that. And she said the thing that really amazed me was that even though I didn't have the experience, my voice was valid, which is kind of a social thing, really. We talk about real life social. So we don't need to have any rules for people to know how to behave, and the way in which people are behaving is to say, look, whatever your level of knowledge, it would be very easy in a room of people with great knowledge, which we had, to feel uncomfortable talking as a beginner and not showing that you didn't know anything. And she felt she was really happy doing that and talking about that, and that's fantastic. And the people around that already have that knowledge, done that a long time ago, have the patience to sit with that or work with that, or say I'll give you some help, or just to double check that people understand. I think the other thing is people just double checking that everybody's all right. We've had lots of things happen, but making sure everyone's all right and they're all comfortable. That it comes back to this point of you don't need to tell people what to do. You don't have to tell people when to have a coffee or what to have for lunch, when to have lunch, any of that stuff. All you need to do is say, look, it's there. We'll provide the venue, we'll provide the reason for you to gather. It's like any community, when we talk about community space, we give you an excuse to have a conversation, we'll give you a place to have a conversation. Really, you're responsible for that conversation. And that's what happened. So I'm signing off, and see you in Stockholm.